Bienvenue, benvenuti, and welcome to Expatriotical, the podcast for expats, travelers, and other adventurous souls. I'm Chandra, and after living as an expat with my husband and 4 children in 2 different countries for almost 6 years, I've learned the arts of pivoting during pitfalls, traveling tastefully for less, and soaking in amazing new cultures without losing your own. Join me as we dive into the joys and challenges of travel and the expat life in every episode. Buongiorno tutti. That means good day or hello, everyone. I hope that today finds you in a good place. Today, we will resume our summer sit-down episodes with a conversation that I started with Paris photographer Katie Donnelly. Last week, Katie shared her story of moving to Paris from New York and starting her own business straight out the gate, a business which is currently thriving and well. Today, Katie is going to be even more candid with me as she shares her experience going through a valley no one ever wants to have to go through, and that was her fight against cancer. Katie is real and thoughtful, and she shares her story with such dignity and grace. She is truly a marvel, and I can't wait for you to hear all that she has to say. Okay, everybody, we are back today with Katie Donnelly. If you have not checked out her interview from last week telling us about how she started and grew a thriving business here in Paris, please check out last week's episode. But she is sticking around so kindly and graciously to share a little bit more about herself, because she has not only had challenges professionally here in France, but also personally. And she's going to share a little bit about that with us today. And Katie, do you want to basically start with telling us a discovery that you made? And I don't know the timeline of how long ago this was that you made this personal medical discovery.
Sure. So in February 2020, I actually, I had lots of symptoms for a really long time, but actually, no, what am I saying? In April 2020, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Okay. And you said you had some symptoms before, but due to you being a young person, was that something that you were able to, or even, I don't want to say doctors, but sometimes I've experienced that through friends where they're like, oh, no,
Hmm.
you're fine. It's this, it's
Yeah.
whatever.
So basically the symptoms kind of like ramped up. They ramped up a lot after the birth of my daughter
Okay.
in 2019, and then they were kind of put into like, oh, you're, tired, you're a new mom, you're a new mom, it's postpartum this. And yeah, until finally I like went to my general doctor, my GP, and I was like, hey, I've seen you like once a month for the last year. We need to
Yeah.
figure this out. And he was
Okay.
like, yeah, let's figure this out. And so we started, so we just ran a battery of tests that turned to more and more and more and more. And then it took about 6 weeks to get everything. I had a few biopsies, one that showed no cancer, and then the second one they had to do surgery to get it, and then that one was the one that confirmed the cancer. Um, so yeah, it definitely took a while. I think that there is like, oh, okay, I was otherwise honestly like a healthy person who've never had any sort of issues before. I have a pretty healthy lifestyle, I feel like. So I think there's truth to that of, why would this person be so not healthy?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So upon this realization, which kind of, it sounds like it took a while because of just all the steps and the processes and tests and that sort of thing to really come up with something concrete, other than maybe possibly being shocked and possibly devastated. I don't know. I know that would be my thought, especially, you're a mom now at that point. And what were some of your thoughts when this hit you?
Yeah, so it was, they were very reassuring. It was thankfully a cancer, even though it was like very, very advanced. It was a cancer that they, have been one of been treating for over 50 years, and
Okay.
so it has lots of research and has really good treatments, and they call it one of the cancers they can basically cure. So that right there is like a huge, was sort of a comfort. But when statistically you're the anomaly once, you always think it doesn't matter what statistics are.
Yeah.
I'm already in the bottom. Why wouldn't I be again? So yeah, I think like the first things, like I was worried about being able to have more kids. I was worried about like what would happen. This was in the middle of COVID as well, so it was that kind of put a really strange spin on everything, because in all of this I was very, I did everything on my own. Like my husband FaceTimed one time with my oncologist, but yeah, other than that, until very recently, he had never met them or had
Yeah.
been to any appointments with me. So it's a different thing when you're like, okay, like I'm gonna go through all of this and then essentially be in the actual action of getting chemo and everything and the surgery alone in it. Even though, like, you have like, I definitely in my heart and in my head had my family just surrounding me all the time, and they were always really active in supporting me as much as they could. And we have an incredible extended family. Um, and his parents came and lived with us, and then my mom came for a month and a half or 2 months as well. So we were never alone. My daughter was never alone. She was always mommied, even if it wasn't by me.
Okay.
Um, and so there was a lot of like luck in the time that it was also COVID, because my husband was then working from home full time. My mom was able to come for a really long time because she wasn't working. And
Okay.
so like there were good aspects of it, and then very traumatic aspects as well. But yeah, honestly, like I feel like I just want my kids to remember me, and they're still not at that age, and so that's probably my biggest fear still, that like I'll die and they won't remember me.
Yeah, that's really that's really deep. I It's interesting the things that can happen even recently. I have a 5-year-old. He's my youngest, and I said, "Oh yeah, well we did this," and I said, "Do you remember that?" And he goes, it was actually the Jardin de Luxembourg, and I was explaining a
Hmm.
really fun time that we had with friends, and he was like, "No, I don't remember." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I can imagine like the trauma in those thoughts, just the thoughts alone.
Yeah, because there's such a just a huge part of my, and I just had my daughter at this point. She had just turned 1 a few days after I was diagnosed. And so I'm like, well, she's definitely not going to remember me. But she's 5 now, and so she's still not past that. So there's like I'm in remission now, and there's like I'm on a happy part of the chapters, or I don't know if it's still the same chapter, whatever it is. Um, but I'm a happy part of it. So yeah. So
That's
there's,
some thoughts.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, there are definitely good things, and but yeah, that
So
was the hardest.
so
Is
how if you, or I mean I don't even know if you feel like you could speak for him, but from the outside, how do you feel like your husband took the news? I mean, was he surprised, or was he like, you know what, with the things you've been experiencing, this makes sense?
um I honestly, like, I think he, from the first time, basically, like, I called him because I was getting these scans. This was before I was diagnosed, and they were like, I was like, oh yeah, so I went in for, the ultrasound of this thing, and they want, but now they have to like do some emergency scan, so you're gonna have to pick up the baby at daycare.
Okay.
And he was like, from then, for me in my head, I was just like, I have an infection. Like, I have this crazy infection. I don't know what's going on. Like, even though they're saying I have all these things in my lungs, and, you know, I don't know what it is. Um, and yeah, and so for that, I think that's when he started getting nervous. But
Okay.
he didn't like, put that on me. Like, I just know that
No.
he like went and like, picked up my daughter and like had like was really worried and like had tears in his eyes or was crying at the crowd. I don't know. He told me this after the fact or the,
Okay.
and this was, yeah. So that I know he's quite stoic about it. But yeah, he's like a rock, and they never, everyone always centered me in it. So they never, I know it was like incredibly hard for him. And um, honestly, this is maybe just like so selfish. I have no idea, but I couldn't really focus on anyone else's emotions during this time.
No, yes, that's,
So it
yeah,
was, and it was only kind of recently that I was able to focus on other people's, because it's just so all consuming.
consuming. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, even still, like looking back on it and like rethinking, you just like drop back into those feelings. And it's very much like, and other people, not everyone handles this the same way or is emotional about it the same way. And,
Hmm.
but just for me, it's for sure like a relived thing every
Yeah.
time. It's not a memory.
Wow. Yes. Okay. So you mentioned that your family came in and your mom, excuse me, came in, your in-laws came in. And so in a
Hmm.
way, because one of my questions had been, did you feel, was it hard to be separated from your original nuclear family? But it sounds like you had some support there. I mean, I'm assuming you were FaceTiming and that sort of thing to try to keep the
Yeah.
connection. And would you say that those were part of your, I don't know, plans of action for just having that support for your daughter, for yourself, mentally, emotionally, for your husband, um, having having them come was part of your action plan, if you will.
For sure, for sure. And we're like very close with our parents, so it was not even a question. Like they were just like, "We'll come and we'll stay as long as we need to stay."
Amazing.
Um, and because my husband was working, and then I was hospitalized for each time for multiple days when I was going through chemo. So
Okay.
it was, we needed childcare, and then afterwards the recovery was quite intense. And she's little, it's different. You can't just like give her a game and be like, go play on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just, she just needed more caring. And my husband had to continue working and everything. Um, so yeah, so he could be available and at home and everything. But yeah, it was just, yeah. No, I felt very supported by them. And even, like my cousins were always texting me when I was, um, like every day. My best friend, like,
Oh.
everyone was, I don't know, everyone was just huddled around in different ways and supporting. Or, some friends would bring food, some friends would just pop by, or so, or, just to wave from the window, because it was
Oh.
COVID. So,
Yeah.
like some,
Yeah.
like it was. And then, some friends would be like, okay, like would like quarantine themselves when we could finally go out, and then for a few days, and then take loads of tests, and then come and see me. Like
Oh my
it just like
goodness.
everyone like just I don't feel like I had to ask anything of anyone, because I just have really incredible people in my life,
They gave so
who showed
freely.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and so that was definitely helpful. I think it was really hard for my family, and it was super hard for my mom not to be here from the beginning for the whole time.
Hmm.
But then once she was here, it was, it was big relief for her. Um, and then, yeah, and then she uh, stayed like during that time. It was a little bit crazy because my dad also was diagnosed with cancer pretty much simultaneously. So, and
Oh
my
my
parents
goodness.
weren't together anymore. So I was like, so my dad obviously couldn't come, um, and I was, on his, medical calls and everything. So it
Hmm.
was a very intense time dealing with my own stuff, dealing with his stuff, and just knowing that he was, not going to have the same ending that I did, that I
Oh
have.
my.
So yeah, just all of that. It was very intense. But because I was going through it, I really see it as, something the universe sent me, because then I was able to help my dad in a different way.
Empathize completely. I mean, you were in it with him,
Um,
literally.
yeah, and so we really did were able to kind of bond and have some understanding about that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so it was just it's a crazy time, but I do feel like I was supported and just in really amazing ways by a lot of people.
And so you mentioned, the treatments and it was chemotherapy, and during each time you had to be hospitalized and stay there for a while and then the
Hmm.
recovery. How long was your treatment from start to finish, as far as like the how many rounds, or were there also additional surgeries, etc., like that?
Hmm. Yeah, so the first surgery I had for I guess for diagnosis was in April, and then once I was diagnosed, then I did IVF, like egg freezing, so that was about 3 weeks. And then I went into chemo, and then so I had two different protocols. The first one was very, very heavy, and that was the one where I was hospitalized uh, for I think it was 4 days, and then I was out of the hospital for 3 days, and then I was back in the hospital for a day. Um, and then I had, yeah, like oral chemo and IV chemo, and then like steroids and stuff. So I did that I think I did 2 rounds of that, and then I did 4 rounds of just infusions where it was like two infusions that were 15 days apart for each round. So, and that was only like day hospital. So I
Okay.
didn't have to like spend the night there, which was much better, but just intense in a different way. And that was definitely like a relief because, yeah, it was just different. It was so much less long. The side effects were I was like pretty wrecked from the first protocol.
Okay.
So I was really relieved to be able to go off of it, because the results were really good.
That's
So
good. So would you
yeah.
say would you say that the hardest thing, or I guess the general question should be, what would you say the hardest thing was for you? Sickness, fatigue, or during that first protocol, just simply being away from everybody?
All.
Or
I don't
everything, all of
know.
the
It was
above?
just everything. It was like the first. I mean, like the first ones, you're always like learning about it as well. Like, it was the
Hmm.
first time I'd ever done chemo, and so I didn't know what it was going to be. And so, like, I know it's pretty common. Like, a lot of people have allergic reactions. I had an allergic reaction, so that's kind of scary. And then, so you're just kind of figuring out, okay, what are each day follows a different kind of routine of symptoms. And so I would log my days, like day one, I had this, day two, I had this, day three, I had this. Like they knew that on day 15, I'd be bald. Like, or it was like day 15, your, hair is going to fall out in clumps. And then day 21, you'll be bald. Like stuff like that. They also know. Um, and then, some days, the closer you are to chemo, it's like the more intense the symptoms are. It's like really, lots of nausea or vomiting or constipation or, not very fun things.
No, I really appreciate you being so open and so candid with us right now, because and just in general, I just have to say thank you for sharing this, because life just doesn't stop when you move abroad. It just doesn't stop. Like the good things, people get married and have babies and all this stuff, and then people pass away and people get sick. And so I really appreciate you doing this, because somebody is going to listen to this, whether it's when it airs or one day, and just think like, oh my gosh, like I feel seen. I don't feel alone. There's been somebody else that went through it, and they know. They just know how this is.
Yeah.
And so thank you.
Yeah,
Even
I
all
think
this stuff that you're like, yeah, I know that's like not the, funnest to
it's
share,
not,
but it's
yeah.
important.
It is, and I think it is just like exactly what you said. Life does move on. Like time passes whether you're in a bad moment or you're in a good moment. And like I have this mantra where I'm like, good things can happen on bad days, bad things can happen on good days. And I really tried to make it my life was at that point, bad things can happen on good days, and I'm gonna try and have these good days. Like during that time, my daughter started walking, she was dancing, she started saying words, she started saying mama.
Oh,
There were all of these things. I got to have all this bonus time with my husband. We did still go on, some of our friends got married. Some of them got promotions. Some of the, like there were a lot of really wonderful things. Like we became even closer to our families. Um, Even though it's like a really dark time for me, just because emotionally I was in this horrible time. Um, and sometimes I do feel like, oh, did I forget? Did I block out, 6 months of my kid's life, a year of my kid's life? And I didn't. I remember them because they're the things that I focused so hard on, to focus on anything then other than what was going on with me. So I do feel like you have to let the good in. You have to, you decide what color glasses you want to see the world. You decide your emotions. You decide how you want your day to go and with your intentions. And so I really try and really, really tried at those days, to focus on, these are good days. Some bad things are happening, but these are good days. And sometimes they were bad days.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Sometimes there was a string of bad days, or, I started getting depression towards the end. And that was really hard to see anything, but I just, yeah, good things still happened on those days. So I read a lot of really good books. I reread a lot of really good books. There was just wonderful, wonderful things that happened. And so, yeah, life does keep moving, which is good and bad. Sometimes I wish I could go back just to, I wouldn't want to relive any of it all. But I'd like to talk to my dad again. And
Yeah.
I talked to my dad a lot during there. And so, yeah, there were good things too.
There are good things too. Basically, you just answered the next question, which is like, what were little things that brought you moments of hope and joy? And it sounds like, your mentality, number one, just setting intention for the day, and your daughter, and just those precious moments, getting to talk with your dad, just all those little things that they add up to something and they mean something.
Yeah, I remember like just being kind of bedridden. And just I remember hearing laughter in the other room. And like I remember my daughter like running around, and then she would come and peek into the bedroom, and then she'd run around. We had this like kind of little circuit in our house, in our apartment at that point. And then like I remember my mom laughing with her, and them just like sitting at the table laughing together, whatever they were doing, and my husband goofing around with her. And just like I remember the sounds so vividly, and just being like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I'm here. Like I'm just really grateful. So
That's so
that,
wonderful.
yeah.
It's beautiful. And you mentioned that you're in remission. We're so thankful for that. And how long have you been in remission now?
Yeah, so I have been out of treatment. I ended treatment, yeah, pretty much 3.5 years ago. So which is
Wow.
kind of
Okay.
crazy. So it's been a while. So yeah, I'll have my follow up in the next few weeks for 3.5 years. And so I have
Okay.
another year and a half. And then once I'm 5 years, I'm kind of out of the park, where it's like, my odds of getting this cancer again, at least, are, pretty much like anyone else, I think.
Okay.
So,
Okay. That's
which
wonderful.
is good, which is
Yeah.
kind of crazy. So almost there. I'm farther out than I, you know, I'm closer to the end than to the beginning, I guess.
Exactly.
But I'm not sure if it's the end. I think it's just the end with my oncologist, and then it's just one of those things. It's one of those moments where there's a before and an after. Like it's just one of those things. There's like that pre-person you were. It's like becoming a parent. Like there's like that day as a before and after the first, the day you become a parent. Um, and yeah, way more than other things in your life. But yeah, those dramatic life shifts. So.
It makes you look, I mean, this is not the same. And I didn't have, I mean, what I experienced was very different. But after having a stroke, literally, I think around the same time that you were diagnosed with cancer. And so I literally, I mean, I just, things are just different. Like if something funny
Yeah.
happens in my body, like my brain just like picks
Yeah.
up like, what is
Yep.
that? You know? And
You're very
so
in tune
you're
with
very in
with
tuned.
yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely a before and after. Absolutely. Absolutely. So how would you say daily life is now? Like is life back to post cancer normal? I mean, if that makes any sense after what we just said, like, it's not ever going to be like it was before, but would you say like you're in a pretty good quote unquote normal life rhythm?
Yeah, I think that like it's really hard to compare my life before and after because I'm a different person. I was like a young parent then, and COVID changed a lot of things in the world, and then like my business and like my life is just drastically different because of so many things. But honestly, my life right now is just it's full. It's My kids are small, or they need us a lot and we need them a lot, and I just really try and um I try and be fully wherever I am. So if I'm at work, I'm fully there. If I'm home with my kids, I'm fully there. And that's I try. Sometimes it's not what happens.
Yeah, things bleed over
But
sometimes. Yeah.
exactly. I try my best. But yeah, no, I'm every day I wake up happy, and that's a really good place to be.
It is a great place to be. And I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, since then, you were able to have another child. Amazing,
Yeah,
wonderful. And
that was
so
that was a bonus. That
that's
was
amazing.
my little angel miracle baby. So,
That's awesome. I love it. I
yeah.
love it so much. So, is there anything you'd like to share with somebody listening who has just received a diagnosis, or maybe it's their CIP, which for those that are listening that are new, they're completely irreplaceable partner. It's in place of trailing spouse because I hate that term, that has been diagnosed with cancer or another potentially terminal illness while abroad. Any thoughts, words of wisdom, or encouragement that come to mind for you that you would share with them now?
Hmm. Um, the biggest thing I would say is get a therapist, go to
Okay.
therapy.
Yes.
Um, I've had three. I had one in the hospital. I had another one afterwards, and then I have another one that I'm currently with. And that you don't stop needing it. My husband sees one now, um, and that has done a lot of good for him as well. That would be my biggest advice. Um, Another one is, yeah, that good things happen on bad days, bad things happen on good days, and it's all how you look at it.
I love that.
And um, yeah, and maybe just you want to know everything that's going to happen, and maybe it's just better that you don't. And
Okay.
I think a lot of the times we're like, why didn't the doctor tell us this, or why didn't this happen, or what have you, or and I think sometimes it's just because it's overwhelming what you're going through, and you don't have to know everything before you do it. Maybe it's every one thing you do is one less thing you have to do after. And
There you go.
yeah, my cousin told me that when I was going through this, I had this crazy lung test before chemo, and I was like, Diana, I feel like they waterboarded me. And she was like, well, at least you don't have to do it again. One thing in, that's another thing off the list. And I was
That's
like, I
nice.
hadn't thought of it that way. And then, so that really, really helped me, this kind of perspective
Yeah,
of, okay, I don't have to do it again.
that's good.
And yeah. And then, okay, I guess also one last thing is like, you are your biggest advocate.
Mm,
Your nurses and doctors will never know your diagnosis or your everything surrounding what you've experienced better than you.
yeah, yeah.
You have to keep. I always like. I feel like I was the biggest complainer, but I wasn't complaining in like a whiny way. I was just saying, this is what I'm feeling. I made sure every single nurse that would come in, I told them what I was feeling. I would make sure the doctor or like the intern or anyone who I was seeing, even if it happened that had it happened the time before, um, that was happening every time after having that one, major allergic reaction at the beginning of my first chemo. I said every single time, like, I had a really bad allergic reaction. Am I getting, like, I just want to make sure that I'm getting like the anti-allergy meds first or whatever. Like, you have to be your biggest advocate. It's not complaining. You don't have to be a martyr. You don't have to suffer through things. They have things to help with a lot of the side effects, and telling people about what's going on with you, especially your medical team, is really important. They cannot they can't read your
Yeah, I was
mind.
gonna say they're not mind readers. Like they're doing their best, but
No.
yeah.
Exactly. And, it's okay to be your biggest advocate. I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh, but, we shouldn't have to or whatever. It doesn't matter. The reality is you're in it, and you are the one who's feeling it all and living it all. And so it's normal that you would know it best.
Yeah.
And yeah, just keep doing that. And even, bring that to anything. I used to like write notes in my phone to make sure, and I still do it before every single doctor's appointment, notes of all the things that I want to make sure I don't forget to tell them, that either something happened or something stopped happening, or, questions, or whatever.
Yeah. I
So, yeah.
it's interesting because I do the exact same thing for myself, for my children. I'll be like,
Yeah,
okay, what, like,
exactly. Yeah.
got to get it out there, because you're right. You need to, and I think sometimes this is my lazy brain that's just like, I don't want to have to do this for myself. But you're right. Like, you're the only one that knows this information. And so you have to be the one to put it out there so that other
Yeah.
people know it. So that's,
Yeah, it can be a little bit annoying sometimes. I'll give everyone that, and like yeah, like, or even like switching doctors if they don't read your file all the way or what have you. It's very frustrating, but it's just the reality of what it is. And so I think that if you take it personally, then it becomes harder.
yeah,
You just really have to figure out how to not take it personally and just
roll with it a
be
little
there.
bit.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, not everything is personal or
No,
about you. It's just is,
it just
and that's
is.
okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Wow. That was like a treasure trove of information. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's awesome. So I have a couple more questions, and these are just a couple of questions that I ask all of my guests. And
Okay.
so it's just kind of what comes to mind. Tell us your favorite thing about being an expat, or in your case, a person that has chosen to permanently live abroad.
Okay, what's my favorite thing? I don't even know if I have a favorite thing. I think a perk was that when you leave the place that you're from, you kind of allow yourself to find yourself a bit more. Like,
Oh,
you can be whoever you want to be. You can shift, and you don't feel like people are watching you while you're doing it. So you don't feel like stuck
yes.
in your in who you are.
There
You
aren't
can change, or you
those
can, yeah.
those expectations that you had before that were there with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I think that it's just an internal thing, like we just naturally allow ourselves to be. It's like when kids go off to college. Oh my God, kids. It's like, it's like when they go off to college, like high school you is so different from college you,
Oh
because
yeah.
college you allow yourself more. You're reinventing yourself, and whoever you want to try, you try out new things and figure out who you are. And I feel like this is just that kind of same feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final question is, what has been your most memorable experience as an expat?
I don't know. I don't even know what's my most memorable experiences, like specifically as an
It
expat.
could be a general thing. Mallory had said that for her, it's been the travel opportunities for her. So that's lots of different places.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, something similar where it's like I think that our travel has become part of our routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that might not necessarily be an expat thing. I think that's a European person thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very common here to travel a lot. And so because it's, they're just more accessible
It's
in
so
general.
accessible. Yeah.
And yeah, and so I definitely have loved that. I think also I really like raising children with multiple cultures.
Mm.
I think like I grew up in a big city, and coming to another big city with like loads of cultures in it, like that's really important, for to know that people are. I just think that everyone is wants the same basic things of like, health, happiness, good food, and you kind of feel that you realize that a bit more when you leave your country and you explore other places, or you're raised in multiple cultures where it's just that's what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you, Katie, so much. Again, this is Katie Donnelly of Katie Donnelly Photography. She has been my guest over these past 2 episodes. She's been wonderful. And I have to say thank you again so much, Katie, for taking your time
Thank
to share
you.
not only about your business, how you've grown it and then how it's thriving, but also about personal struggles that you've been through. And this has been a gold mine really for people that are going through some of the same things that you're experiencing, or have experienced. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. How someone can speak about something so hard, so challenging, and yet leave you hopeful and with a smile on your face is beyond me. But Katie does it. She has faced down what many of us shudder to think of and has walked away with an open heart and open hands, willing to share her experience if only it can be helpful to someone else. Like I said, truly a marvel, and I am so thankful to have had the opportunity to meet and speak with her in these past episodes. Remembering Katie's words that good things happen on bad days and bad things happen on good days is something that can carry us all, fighting cancer or not, through life's journey. So thank you again, Katie, from the bottom of my heart. Okay, transitioning to this week's Shan Select feels a little bit awkward after that beautiful but weighty conversation, but let's go ahead and mention it. It comes with a little bit of a story. Last summer, Chris and I were invited to the 240th something birthday celebration of the American Embassy in Paris because of Chris's employer. It was a super cool event that I would have never dreamed I would be attending, and I did my best to not have imposter syndrome while there. Anyway, after the American ambassador gave her speech, she made the routine of going around and meeting people, and somehow we ended up getting to meet her. She was friendly and easy to talk to, so I guess that's why I blurted out, "I really like your dress. It's beautiful." I might not have sounded quite so Valley Girl when I did that, but I did blurt it out, as it happened to be my favorite color. And she quickly replied, "Thank you so much. I actually got it for 100 something euros. I don't actually exactly remember. This is me saying this, but remember being impressed because it was a semi-formal occasion." And she let slip the name of the store, which was Antoine et Lily. I quickly preserved that in my memory and then after a few months forgot about it. But not long ago, I was listening to something, don't remember what it was, and heard that name again. Not 2 weeks after that, I was on a tour with Xenia. If you need a reference for who that is and how amazing her tours are, please listen to episode 4, Hospitalizations Child Edition, where Xenia's company, The Choice of Paris, is that episode's Shan Select. Anyway, we were at the end of the tour of the Saint-Martin Canal, which is Saint Martin in my American accent, in the 10th arrondissement, and I noticed 3 brightly colored storefronts above which all 3 said Antoine et Lily. So I, of course, had to go in after the tour and window shop. I was delighted by the colors and fabrics of all sorts, made into gorgeous dresses, pants, shirts, you name it. There were beautiful leather purses and shoes, and in the final store, there were gorgeous hand-painted pottery pieces and a plethora of other home goods. all at reasonable prices. I proceeded to purchase myself a platter and a spoon rest, and then went back 2 days later and bought a gift for a friend. Antoine et Lily is located in a fun, bohemian, up-and-coming neighborhood and is worth your time if you are visiting Paris and want to go home with something a little bit different. I will include their website in the show notes so you can learn more and maybe even do a little shopping online. Thank you all again so much for listening. And before I sign off, I would love to say that if you haven't already, would you consider telling a friend about the podcast? Whether they are an expat or simply someone that is interested in traveling, I would love them to be a part of our little community. Thanks, guys, and I will catch you back here again next week. Until then, this is Chandra Alley reminding you to live and travel in the know with Expatriotical.